Star Trek, the next generation. You're loved throughout the nation. You're my favourite show. Once in every episode, you're lucky. You don't have to wait for buses. You just step into the transporter and off you boldly go. Mr. Wall's my favourite person.
We are the Org. Our mission is to assimilate Star Trek The Next Generation, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and beer. Lots of beer.
Hello, friends!
Hello!
And welcome to bOrgCast 6.9.
69 for now.
6.9, damn it. Not having you smuttify my numbering system to think of purity and beauty. Anyway.
I can smuttify anything, me.
You probably could. Org news now. And we finally have our Season 6 Blu-ray. Hooray! And thus we were able to catch up with all the extras so far, which there weren't a great deal. The only really interesting deleted scene thus far is the one on relics.
Yeah, it was.
Which I think we referred to at the time. There was a cut scene that involves Troy visiting Scotty, and it kind of explains why he gives her a kiss at the end, because he does actually have a scene with her beforehand. It seemed a bit random otherwise. And she basically tries to sort of help him access his feelings, but he cottons on to the fact that she's basically a therapist and doesn't like the idea at all.
And actually says you're just making everything worse.
Yes.
It's actually a very funny scene.
It is a really good scene, and then he wanders off to 10 forward to recover.
Yes.
I'll go to the pub. Okay, we've had some general feedback from the last podcast. Shane sent me a YouTube link to an episode of Benson. Remember, this came up when they sent feedback for our last podcast. Shane and Darren made reference to Benson, which was a series of, they said featured René Auberjonois and Armin Shimmerman. That actually turned out not to be Armin Shimmerman, but actually Ethan Phillips, a.k.a. Neelix. Yeah, so not quite so good. There's a few episodes up on YouTube, and I sampled a few of them. René Auberjonois is excellent as ever. He's really a good comic actor, actually. But the less said about the rest of the cast, the better, really, to be honest. It was very American sitcom, insert canned laughter here, I fear. And, Ethan Phillips manages to be just as irritating when he's not playing Neelix, it turns out. Various people told me that the use of the palm rather than punching is quite a common practice, apparently, in martial arts. It's to prevent you damaging your fist, basically, when you apply it to somebody's skull, which clearly is much harder. Whereas apparently if you use the palm of your hands, it kind of spreads the blow rather more.
It was in a Jack Higgins book I read.
Well, now you remember.
No, I told you at the time.
Did you?
Yes.
Oh, right. Yeah,
I didn't know about the not breaking the bones, although that is logical.
Yep.
But in the Jack Higgins book, what you're supposed to do with it specifically is break somebody's nose.
Ah, yes, I remember you mentioned the breaking the nose thing, but apparently it's a general thing as well to ensure you don't hurt your fingers.
Oh, okay.
So there you are. Clearly I'm too much a man of peace to know these things. Grant has also been catching up with Season 3 bOrgcasts, as he tweeted he agreed with our opinions on The Enemy and the Price. Takes us back. And we had some general feedback from Brandy and Dave. Unfortunately, it's rather long, so we can't fit it all in. As I had to explain, unfortunately, we used to say try and keep your feedback to 5 minutes long, but our own fault, we forgot saying that just of late. But it's merely to ensure that we can get through everything in one evening, because generally we've only got one night in a week where we're both in and both able to do this. So because we leave listening to the feedback until we're actually recording the podcast, it makes recording the podcast longer than it might be.
And we can't start too early because we've got to
putting the blooming kids to bed. So, we have to squeeze things in as best we can. But I did listen to it earlier in the day, and it was very entertaining. Thank you, guys. They did know about the Red Dwarf episode, Gunman of the Apocalypse.
Oh, they did?
And indeed preferred it to Fistful of Datas as well. Apparently, the Red Dwarf gets a pass because it's British people, and therefore we're not expected to know accents. So it was perfectly acceptable for them to be screwing up the accents.
Fair enough.
Although they did say apparently the guy who's the leader of the Apocalypse Boys got the accent spot on.
Oh.
So whether he is actually a United Statesian, we're not sure, but there we are. And they also liked the fact it wasn't all about the gunfighting, and they had different skills and stuff, and sort of video game references, because it isn't just about the Old West, it's also about video games, isn't it? So it's another of these better-than-life virtual simulation things. Apparently Kirk looks really crap at hand-to-hand combat, according to Dave. If you know anything about hand-to-hand combat, apparently he does not sell it well I mean, he doesn't look great to a complete noob like me, but I guess if you know your stuff, it's going to...
Actually, I've always thought he looked shit, but I put it down to the stunt direction of the time, to be fair.
No, some of it will be that, I guess. Some of it will be Shatner's own inimitable style.
Shacting again.
Yes. And apparently Susie and the Banshees covered Sparks. This town ain't big enough for the both of us. Shall we move on to the quality of life then? I must apologise in advance. Every time I've been talking about this episode to Anne-Marie, I've either called it Fistful of Taters, which is clearly a million miles away. For some reason, my brain is still locked in 2 weeks ago when we covered that. Or I've called it The Quality of Mercy, which I'm sure there's a variation of that's original series episode or something like that. But it's quality of life. Whatever guff I come out with from this point onwards, I mean the quality of life, okay?
A powerful new invention leads to a startling discovery.
I have reason to believe the exocomps are alive.
But a crisis will force Data to choose between man and machine.
Doctor, the station must be evacuated.
Prepare for emergency transport.
I have locked out the controls.
Will he sacrifice his own captain to protect a new life form?
You release that transporter lockout now.
I cannot do that, sir.
On Star Trek, The Next Generation.
So what do we think of the trailer?
Trailer's all right. Makes it seem quite interesting.
It makes it seem a lot more action-packed than it actually is, but that's, I guess, quite typical of trailers, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it sort of touches on immediately on how I look at the episode, because there are some very good scenes, exciting scenes. There are an awful lot more very talky, very boring scenes, but we'll get on to that.
Okay.
Starting with...
Poker.
Oh, how we've missed thee. It seems like a while since we've had a poker scene. I'm not sure if it has been, but it seems like one. It could have been that Deja Vu one where they kept covering the same stuff over and over again.
Which one was it where was it before or after that, where you have Worf commenting that something was a woman's game? There was too many wild cards.
A woman's hand. That's the same one. Yeah, where you get the Deja Vu stuff. The episode title...
Deja Boob?
Deja Vu stuff. The title of which I should remember, but I can't.
Oh, I never can. I wouldn't worry. Anyway, they're commenting again on George's beard, which is fine.
Now, there is a specific reason I found out why LeVar Burton has a beard. You remember he was growing it in the last episode, Fistful of Date, as well. Now he's got a reasonable-looking beard now.
Yeah.
And not to be mocked. But apparently the reason why he has to be able to grow it is because he needed it for his wedding.
Oh, his wife wanted to marry a beardy man.
Well, who wouldn't?
I like his wife.
But as reasons go, that's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah. And then you've got Crusher, who's... I'm very suspicious of Crusher. She's a beard hater.
How very dare you, madam.
Exactly. Actually, the whole time she was sitting there talking about it, I just had visions of that bit from whichever Cube one it was, where she gets turned into a red setter. And that's all I could see.
Yes.
Anyway, I kind of agree with her point that beards are like makeup or nail polish. It's the male equivalent. You don't have to have one. So if you have one, it is an aesthetic choice.
No. I mean, it can be for some men, don't get me wrong. But, and this kind of comes up in the discussion they have, isn't it? And for Klingons, it's a sign of, what was it?
Oh yeah, but for Klingons that might be different because culturally it might be expected that all men have beards. That's different.
I can't remember what there's a different Klingon justification for having beards. My justification for having a beard is quite simple. I'm too lazy to fucking shave. So therefore a beard saves me time in the morning, time that could be perfectly well spent catching an extra minute or so in bed.
Okay.
So it's a symbol of laziness, if anything, for me.
Anyway, I think she's got a point, that because there is a choice there. What I don't like is the fact that she then says if she wins this game of poker, all their beards have to go. And then they say to her, you should become a brunette. No, they should have said, right, you've got to get a fucking Brazilian or something.
Yes, but who'd want to see it? Oh, my life. But
well, she'd go to Vajazzles, wouldn't she?
Yeah. But yes, you're quite right. Dyeing your hair is not equivalent to losing your beard, is it?
No.
Cause and effect, was it?
Could have been.
Yes, the time anomaly. Yes, it was cause and effect. Thank you, Memory Alpha.
Anyway, I just sat there wishing that we still had Pulaski, really.
Why, did she like beards?
I don't know, but she never would have... If she never would have just gone, oh, I'll dye my hair, even if Pulaski had been trying to make the same argument as Crusher, even if she was a beard hater. And actually, I kind of see her as a beard liker. But anyway, she would have agreed to do something rather more drastic.
Far more outrageous, I can't help feeling, like run around the ship naked or something like that, yeah. So maybe we are better off having Crusher.
Then it's hooray onto the boring shit. There's a pretty little thing, not sure what it is, but it's going to be doing mining. What's the pretty thing?
Okay, so you've got the particle beam, which comes with it's slightly frustrating because they never give it a proper name. So it's referred to as being the station, and it's the station with the particle beam, but it's never actually called the particle beam station or a rather more catchy title than that, which is a shame because, as you pointed out, it's a really nice looking model.
Yeah.
But can I find anything about the model at all online? No, I can't, which is a shame. Particle fountain. But particle fountain station sounds a bit clumsy, doesn't it?
Oh, it just sounds smutty to me.
Well, it would. Everything sounds smutty to you.
Yeah, it's true. And this doctor, who at this stage we don't know what her name is, she wants to try and demonstrate this is better than conventional mining. And then almost as soon as she says, we want to demonstrate this is better, it all goes a bit tits up.
Yeah.
It goes a bit wonky.
Yeah, I can't remember what's the name of the alien race.
I know.
It's something or other system, isn't it? But oh dear, we're doing well tonight, aren't we? It's hot. We've had beer. It's already gone to our heads. She's got crappy hair. That's all sort of mounded up in strange ways. And then a very crappy bumpy forehead, very Trek.
Well, it looks like it's mostly done with eyeshadow.
It is very odd indeed. So, yeah, very generic Trek alien.
Yeah. And the costumes are very generic Trek as well.
They are really, yes. Nothing to write home about at all, are they?
No. Whereas, I mean, some alien races, you've noticed their clothing. Like thinking of the Inner Light.
Yeah.
You know, where you could kind of see a culture in the clothing, if you see what I mean. You get none of that. None of that with this.
She's...
Dr. Farrellon, her name is, but I don't know what her race is.
And it's a Tyrant particle fountain, so presumably she's a Tyrant.
Everything goes all wonky, and they've got to fix the power grid, and it's going to be a problem. They've only got a short amount of time to get out of there. And she says, well, you know, she was going to show Geordie this experiment, but now's as good a time as any to demonstrate it. She's made this thing called an exocomp, and if it succeeds, it will fix everything. And if not, there'll still be time to beam out if it doesn't. So in it goes to do its thing, and Harara does it, and then there's a really bad let's pretend style effect on the wire as it slowly and judderingly comes out of its tube and ever so slowly settles on the floor badly, circa 1960s Doctor Who. And then it waggles a thingy that looks like it's waving, for fuck's sake.
So you don't like the design then?
I don't mind the design. It does remind me rather too much of a Fiendish Feet yogurt.
The feet are stupid. Why they gave them those chunky big feet when they don't actually move?
No,
is beyond me. Because I mean, if they move, they hover. They don't walk. So or they don't move along on track. Yeah, there aren't any wheels underneath, which is what you initially assume there's going to be. So that the feet kind of ruin the design for me. The rest of it I quite like. All those little probes that waggle, and they're obviously supposed to be kind of cute in a way, and they make cute little burbly noises. They're effectively Trek's version of droids. Well, sadly, they never return again. No, at least in the series, anyway. Apparently, they return in Star Trek Online.
I was going to say somebody written a book about them.
And they do feature in one of the Titan books as well, apparently.
Okay, the one with the 16-year-old captain.
Oh, whatever. Oh, by the way, Tyrans, I've just done a little search on. We do get another Tyran, apparently. Although it's only because they're reusing the makeup rather than making a big thing of her being the same species. But she appears in the Deep Space Nine episode Invasive Procedures.
Oh, I know that one. That's the Trill one.
That's a very memorable one, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's a season 2 episode, yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, it's the effect that I noticed more than the look. The bad effect of them coming out the hole. This one coming out the hole. And
the way it sort of wobbles.
Yeah.
It's because they're rod puppets. So, yeah, it does make them look a bit wobbly.
So it doesn't look realistic. And then, yeah, just the feet and the waggly... I don't know, like it's supposed to look like a fucking cute mechanised woodlouse or something. I don't know. Anyway, then you end the teaser.
Yeah, it would have made more sense to have had the ending of the teaser when everything kicked off with the explosion and stuff. Yeah. But instead, no. Very odd, isn't it?
Still haven't worked out teasers, have they, Next Gen? So then you have Dr. Farrellon on the Enterprise to demonstrate the exocomps.
And we drown in technobabble.
Oh, and she
again.
starts talking to Data and it's technobabble. So Geordie picks up the tin dog and follows on behind, a la Mickey in the school reunion.
And they kind of realise the technobabble is boring because you kind of get Farrell and Data talking technobabble, and they sort of walk off and start to fade off into the distance, and then you've got Geordie coming up behind, and it's kind of like, yes, we know this is boring, so we're fading it down now.
Basically, it has within it a micro replicator so that it can produce the tool it needs, and it learns as it goes. It creates new circuits, new pathways whenever it's done a job once, so that the next time it can do it better and or quicker. She's asking Picard to delay his decision on whether or not this is a better technology than conventional one for 48 hours, which, given that their station nearly just blew up, is a bit stupid because he should be saying no if he's got half a brain cell.
Clearly you are not ready.
Yeah. But she says that she wants him to see it working properly and she can use the exocomps to do it. And he says yes. Like I said, a bit stupid at that point. The station nearly blew up. Anyway, she wants to work with Data because she finds him fascinating. So they're back on the station. They send the excomp into a tube to do something, but it refuses to go in. So I think it goes in a little bit and comes back out again. And then it refuses all instructions, shorts out the keypad, and then the chamber blows up. When the chamber blows up, you get random rocks falling down from no rocks. Like all these rocks, if you look at the floor, there's like rocks on the floor.
Yeah, they're supposed
nowhere.
to be blasted out of the hole. What happens is a big steamy explosion, bunch of rocks come out, and then this guy comes running up, grabs the exocomp, so he runs towards the explosion where the rocks are coming out, picks up the exocomp and runs back again, and he's like, what? Did he personally build that one or something? Was that his own personal pet one? It just seems really odd thing to be doing.
Exocomp.
Yeah, heaven knows.
Oh, I don't know. But it was just like, where the fuck have these rocks come from? There aren't any rocks on the station.
No, I think the idea is that they're bits from inside the pipework, basically, that's got blasted out. But yes, they don't particularly look like they've come from in there.
No, they don't look like they belong with what it is that's supposed to have gone kablooey, basically, which is why I noticed them, actually. And even the smoke isn't that impressive, really, if it was supposedly dangerous. It just looks a little bit like somebody sprayed a fire extinguisher, really. So then they're on the Enterprise trying to understand what happened to the excomp, why it isn't working. Apparently it's generated a whole load of new pathways. And so Dr. Farrell says you have to shut it down. She had one do that. And they're just like, but the new pathways aren't interfering. Georgie's like, oh, it's a good job, I knew when to leave. And so Data thinks that perhaps it's preserving itself. So Data is now investigating the excomp with the help of the Enterprise computer. Then you've got a piss boring scene in 10 Forward, which I won't bother talking about. Then Data goes to Crusher, who's injured herself in calisthenics, and then Data asks Crusher, what is the definition of life? This is also boring. Then you have Dr. Farrell on saying they should now finish on time. Now they've got Geordie's extra cruise that he's offered, and they're on the station. Data then appears and says the exocomps are alive and you can't use them. And then he's saying that, it wouldn't go in when it knew it was danger, so it's preserving itself. And then Dr. Farrell says, yeah, look, but I had one that went into does she say reactor? But anyway, it looked like it was, she says, it blew itself up. Are you trying to tell me it was suicidal? And then my notes say, what the smeg are the lumps of granite on the table? A, because the scene was boring, and B, because, what the fuck are the massive lumps of granite doing hanging off the edge of the table in the conference room in the Enterprise?
Oh, right. They're kind of the things that hold the table up. The sort of pillars.
They're supposed to be legs, but they go around the sides and look ugly. Yeah. And people would bash themselves on them.
Yeah, sometimes they kind of rest their arms on them, bizarrely, but yeah.
I would be forever injuring myself on a table like that. I would knock my legs into it when I got up. I would cut myself on it. I would have... we know what their health and safety record's like. Fair enough. It's a shit dangerous table. Fine. Picard and Data and Dr. Farrell and Geordie conducting a simulation where they try and get the exocomp to perform the same thing, and it doesn't come out within time, so if it hadn't been a simulation it would have blown up, so it's considered to fail the test, and the Doctor looks very smug. But then Data isn't comfortable accepting this and does 34 more tests, and then realises that the exocomp realised that the test was a simulation as a result of it producing a different tool. Then you're back on the station and the party field is going wrong again. So they have to have an emergency beam out. And then one of Dr. Farallon's crew, they can't find him. So Picard and LaForge end up being left behind.
Yeah, one of the crew, the Starfleet crew that get beamed back, who's obviously been helping out, is our friend Ensign J. Good to see her again.
She been at the con?
She'd been at Ops, actually, interestingly, more than con, because she's a operations officer.
So then, instead of going to the conference room, possibly because they all hurt themselves on the table, you end up with a little conference on the bridge with Riker wanting to send the exocomps in, and Data's like, no, you're not. And then Data says if they know you're going to send them to, basically to become photon potatoes, as our daughter would say, they'll know they won't go. So then the Doctor says, well, we can, and then it's like, so if you get round that by rewriting their command, turning off their command circuits, then they'll still go, which should have been the test, surely. I mean,
yeah, this bit doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't.
So Dr. Farallon doesn't believe that they have any sort of self-awareness. Therefore, she ought to think that they will just go in and commit, follow the orders. But she said, because Data says they won't, because he believes they are self-aware. Farallon then says, well, you've got to I'll disconnect these bits and bobs. So they'll do it anyway, and it's kind of her admitting that she's wrong, surely, at this point. And therefore Riker wouldn't allow them to be used. She shoots her argument in the foot at this point.
Yeah, she
but
does.
Nobody notices. It's very odd.
Yeah, because if Data's wrong, why would the command pass need rewriting? Doesn't make any sense at all.
New.
Anyway, they go to try and transport the exocomps, and they can't, and Data has locked out the transporter. So then you get a very cross Riker.
Yeah, this is the best bit of the story for me, and it hit me both times I watched this episode, and presumably when I've seen it in the past as well. You're just so unused to Data being this rebellious if he's not being controlled by an outside influence. I mean, obviously, things like when Soong's recall thing took over and stuff like that. But this is actually Data on purpose disobeying and being quite willing to be court-martialed for this, but this is something he believes about. But it's such a surprise that he's done it, and it's kind of Frakes does a very good job of acting that. What the hell are you're normally the perfect person. What are you doing? And he sort of takes him into the captain's ready room to give him a ball him out basically.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. I like that scene.
It is good. But when Data says that he will beam over, Riker's like, no, I'm not letting you sacrifice yourself. And he says, yeah, but if I do, that's my choice. The exocomps have no choice. So then Riker says, well, why don't we give them a choice?
Yeah, which is a cunning, nice bit of thinking.
And Data's like, yeah, that's absolutely fine. So they then program the stuff into the exocomps, who then start whirring and bleeping and
produce
waggling.
Their big dildos. Yeah, well, they're supposed to be power taps, but yeah. You do wonder why Dr. Farallon created these things. And they learn every time, so they produce a better tool.
Sentient vibrators.
It's the future, guys. Or girls, even. Now it's my turn to smuttify the podcast. Hurrah!
Yay! I'm not sure I'd want a vibrator with feet.
That would be distracting.
Disturbing. You think you're shagging like a rabbit or something. Although, you have got one called the rampant rabbit, so maybe it's not so much a problem. Now, where was I?
Yeah, they produce their dildo look-like tools, as you do. And they program the coordinates they need to be sent into, which is right in the centre of the particle.
Well, it's different. They're obviously doing something different. And Dr. Farallon says to Data, what, have they got superior intelligence? And he's like, no, more experience. So they come up with a different solution to the one they were originally programmed with.
And we've got Chief Kelso, who's on the transporter. Obviously, at this point, we've lost O'Brien, so from now on inwards, it's going to be guest transporter chiefs. I don't think they're settled down to another regular. And he's a one-episode wonder, so he didn't work out for some reason. Don't know why, but anyway, he seemed all right.
Maybe they found him in a compromising position with an exocomp.
There is a bit of apparently the writer Naren Shankar named him Kelso after Lee Kelso, who's in Where No Man Had Gone Before, who's on the con, I think, of the Enterprise in that story.
Oh, right. Yeah, so they appear around a thing, doing things. Yeah. It's not exciting, I'm afraid.
Well, it's one of the more exciting. This bit of the episode I can live with because at least things are happening, and you've got Geordie and Picard in some peril, and
yeah, but it's not very exciting to look at. What you've got is 3 exocops in a sort of triangle, and some noises, and then Picard and Geordie describing what they're doing. Mm-hmm. It's not brilliant.
True. But better than all the talky scenes we've had up till now, for the most part.
Oh, the ones I've skipped, yeah. Yeah, but it's still not great. It's not like a wonderful climactic finale.
No.
Yeah, anyway, it works, And then Data explains to Picard that he was basically acting as the exocomp's advocate in the way that Picard had acted as his.
Yes, they reference the measure of man on purpose because they know that we're going to think of the measure of man, because there's this whole thing about, are they sentient life forms, do they deserve protection, or can they just be used as tools? Obviously he's tapping into that second season episode. It's clearly not as good as that second season episode, even though that was a courtroom drama and was all about talky scenes, but nevertheless it's a lot easier to feel empathy for Data's cause than it is for
vibrators.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what else I can say.
Okay, well, it's very slow and very talky for the most part. There are occasions when it takes off, but not very many, and they don't last very long. Data's rebellion is obviously about the best scene in the whole thing, and the way that Riker deals with him, that's really cool. You wonder if there's going to be any sort of off-screen follow-up to his insubordination, because he did technically disobey an order, even though it was for a good reason. But, yeah, other than that, it is like your third division version of Measure of a Man, isn't it, really? They're kind of suggesting they're starting to run out of ideas at this point, I think it's fair to say. Okay, not awful, but not particularly exciting, to say the least.
I think I would describe it as disappointing.
I think their problem is with the premise that you've got to feel a lot more attached to the exocomps, and therefore they should have introduced them like several stories ago as a thing. But we've just been introduced to them. The design is a bit shonky, and therefore we just can't feel that much for them, unlike Data, clearly. Plus, you have Crusher dissing the beards. And that's your start of your episode. Immediately you're in a bad mood with it.
Yep. I was never going to like it. No. And I think for me as well, the other problems with it, things that could make a difference, is like, oh, this technology is going to replace conventional mining, but oh, look, it's just gone wrong. Oh, bollocks. Oh, but it's all right. You know, Picard should be saying no to this technology straight away. It's clearly dangerous, so that doesn't make sense. You've got her argument about the command pathways doesn't make sense. You've got the fact that she's a generic alien.
Yes, very much so.
So you don't feel any...
I suppose one good thing about it, they could have quite easily cast that role as a man. And we've had plenty of our, driven scientists, male scientists in the past, and it's quite a nice way of showing that in the future,
Yeah, no, that's true. She wasn't Geordie's love interest.
That's another thing. He has a professional relationship with her as well that's quite good, without him falling for her, yeah.
For me, this episode is very flawed, actually, because, the shonky effects with the wobbly exocomps and things that could potentially be dramatic are too talky. And it's just stupid that they're going to carry on and stay there because this technology could revolutionise everything. Well, no, because they nearly had to evacuate. You just fuck off and get out there. It's just, duh. So, yeah.
So there we go. Let's find out what other people think. We had some feedback from Owen Williams, who described it as the quality of life, a.k.a. the continuing ballad of Geordie's beard. Be honest, that would have been made for a better episode, I can't help feeling.
Probably.
If we'd have properly explored those themes rather than the exocomp ones. And we have some feedback from The Mar, and he says, the quality of life. This court-martial of Data is brought to order. The charge pointlessly endangering crew for the free dog-like robots, and all joking apart, Data's actions are probably worthy of a court-martial. Well, he says as much himself, doesn't he? The exocomps are learning machines rather than simple tools, but does being a somewhat more advanced robotic intelligence make them alive? And by taking the argument as far as it does, the story threatens to collapse under its own moral conviction. Data becomes the exocomps' advocate and locks out the transporter controls because he believes the rights of these possible life forms are not being considered. In effect, Data is willing to sacrifice the life of the captain and chief engineer on the hunch that these machines might comprise a rudimentary intelligence that may or may not rise to the level of sentience. And Data will give up absolutely everything to prevent the possibility of the exocomps being sentient beings sent on a suicide mission without any ability to consent. But Data and the quality of life are not interested in drawing lines or designating an order of value. They want to treat all life equally, which means the exocomps have every right to live as Geordi and Picard, even if they may only be marginally sentient. For some reason, that to me seems slightly ridiculous. Maybe I'm just prejudiced against little robotic tools, when instead I should be leading the charge in freeing Siri from her prison of iPhone servitude. Nicely put, sir. And I think he definitely has a point there, really. I mean, again, it comes back to the fact that whereas in The Measure of Man, it's, you do feel for Data and you are on his side. In this, that they are little, robot dog things. They're not even as good as droids in Star Wars, let's face it. So if it had been R2-D2, maybe. If it had been prequel R2-D2, we'd been cheering for his destruction. But, we've also heard, of course, from the Pie Man. Let's find out what Purry makes of this one.
Hello, Orgs. Purry here to talk about the quality of life. And it's a nice moral, sort of exploration of moral and ethical thingies sort of episode. So the basic plot is they're there to assess the feasibility of a particle fountain. So they're doing a feasibility study, effectively. And they've got these little cute robots that do repairs, and Data thinks they might be alive, and basically he's kind of right, sort of. Well, I'd say he is. They definitely show some of the first signs, and actually what I liked about this episode was no one was sitting there going, Data, you're being absurd, apart from the woman who doesn't know him. If you look at it, there's no real reason why the crew wouldn't think that something could sort of start developing an intelligence after all they saw it with the nanites and evolution. So, and yes, I did like the way they let Data run the test. The woman did. It's actually quite nice to see the juxtaposition between the Starfleet and someone outsider, because the woman looks genuinely annoyed when they're going to explore this, this sort of case of, is it alive or not, and all the work being suspended and she's being held up because they're wanting to explore some scientific curiosity. And I thought that was very good. Again, it's a bit like how we saw Kira in the last Deep Space Nine episode in Move Along Home. We saw her, sort of being annoyed at Starfleet's sudden, oh look, a shiny thing, let us examine it, despite the fact that everything's going on. But I thought it was good. So the story rattled along. The exocomps were developed as suitably cute, and I thought the episode panned out quite well. I'd have liked to have seen some follow-up on this, to be honest. But the bigger question of it was, of course, in the opening teaser, where Crusher bets, was it Riker, Worf and Geordi that they shave off their beards if they lose the hand of poker, or she'll dye her hair brunette. Now, I watch these quite often when I'm in from a night shift, and I may have blinked out for a second, but who won? Because no one seemed to shave their beard, and unless I'm monstrously unobservant, which is entirely possible, Crusher didn't dye her hair. So what, did they just decide, we're just being silly, that got a wee bit out of hand? That kind of annoyed me. It also annoyed me, the conversation about beards. People with beards, as someone with a goatee beard, yes, I do have something to hide. It's called my top lip and my chin, and I can't show them for fear of what possible horrors they'd visit in the world. Or it might be that without a beard I look like a giant baby, but either way, yes, we are hiding something. Yes, it's an affection. I don't see why Riker was so annoyed about the fact that, it's okay, you don't have to have a beard, but, in many ways, actually, having a beard's not even an affection. It's actually slightly an unaffection. Not my sort. Mine's a poncy beard, like any of them, but having a full beard is yes, I'm not shaving, I'm not doing something preening. But, there you go. I've talked a wee bit more about beards than I possibly have about the episode. Like I say, overall, the episode worked for me. It was, your moral quandary, not really moral quandary, it's an is it alive sort of question, and should we treat these things like property? Admittedly, Data did seem a wee bit over the top, leaving Picard and Geordi to die in the ship, and you're surprised not more was done to him. He did have a point, but you can imagine that locking out the transporter, he could have, I think maybe bringing it up rather than just locking out the system would have been better. But and I'm surprised he didn't get more court-martialed for that, to be honest. But overall I thought the episode actually rattled along quite well for me, and I found it quite enjoyable. And like I say, nowadays we'd probably have plushy exocomps to play with, or at least Lego ones. God, what a dire and empty time the 1990s were. But anyway, so a good one in my view, and I'll be back shortly to talk about the Deep Space Nine episode. Oh yes, the Nagus, that's the one. Until then, bye for now.
Bye. What a dire and empty time the 1980s were.
1990s were, yeah.
Yeah, like it. Yeah, I mean, I got and I still have, thankfully. It was one of the few things I didn't get rid of. I've got one of the original hand phasers from Next Gen. It was one of the first toys they produced. It's a bit clunky, but it
looks like a dustbuster.
It does. But then again, so did the original design. So, accurate.
Yeah.
I like the fact, yes, rather than Data bringing up his objection first, he just locks the transporters out. That probably is a reason to pursue a court martial. He didn't really go about it the right way, did he?
No.
The poker game got called off because they were all called away by Picard, so they had to give it up, much to Crusher's annoyance, because she clearly felt she was going to win that hand.
Yeah.
And there you go. And that thing about Dr. Farallon being an outsider, rather like, who was it in the previous episode was? Kira. In the previous Deep Space Nine episode, not interested in exploring new life. She's got a job to do. And after all, she created these exocomps. She didn't create them with sentient life. Of course, the idea is that they've kind of evolved it as a result of her giving them the ability to learn. But you can kind of see where she's come from. Rather reminds me of, was it your nan?
Oh dear.
Yeah, who made some wine. There was some stuff that was your own brew stuff, and she claimed it wouldn't be alcoholic because she didn't add any alcohol.
Oh no, that was my great aunt.
Ah, there we go. Not realising that alcohol was produced as part of the process. It's kind of equivalent to that.
She had a very sheltered. Well, actually, my my granddad's great aunt, so however many greats that is, and she had a very sheltered Welsh chapel upbringing, and so she just didn't go anywhere near alcohol. She did genuinely believe alcohol was an ingredient. And then got rather pissed on her own wine as a result. I like the fact that your feedback was mostly about beards. That's good.
A sign of quality.
Yes.
We also heard from Drew and Tracy. We ought to say we went drinking with Drew and Tracy last week. I got rather drunk.
We both did.
Yes, it was hot. We were drinking a lot.
Yes, I got a bit boring. You got rather huggy.
Yes, as usually happens when I get drunk, I get rather too over-affectionate and start hugging everybody, and I'm not too sure whether Drew appreciated the attentions. As it happens, thankfully, I was sat next to Drew, so it was him that got all the hugs, but there we are. But we had a great time.
Yes, it was.
We're very much on a similar wavelength, by the sounds of it. So,
yes.
Let's find out what they make of the quality, if that is the word, of life.
Hello, Peter and Anne-Marie. This is Drew and Tracy giving our feedback for Star Trek Next Generation episode, The Quality of Life. What do you make of that one then?
Well, I think it was very talky and very dry, and it got pretty good right at the end for about 10 minutes with the whole danger of Picard and LaForge and Data looking at the transporter. But then, it got resolved, and I just think...
But they were never going to die, were they?
It's an interesting episode for a little bit, but apart from that, it's just a bit boring and...
Yeah, you're right.
talky.
This is one of these episodes where Data learns a life lesson or, something like that, and it's just a bit...
One thing I did like was when Picard was stuck on the particle fountain, and Riker was in charge, and it just shows the real difference between Riker and Picard, because Picard is just like, we must check it out, like if the exocoms are alive, but Riker was just like, as soon as she says, oh, we can convert them and they can do the job, and Data says, oh no, they're going to probably not do it, shut down, and she's like, oh, I can just take the command functions off, and Riker's just like, do it. And he's like, there's no think about
but that's what it is, isn't it? Because it's to Riker, they're machines and they're expendable.
But I just think that shows a big difference between Riker and Picard.
Absolutely.
Picard is just, there's no way he would be doing that. He'd be like, oh, there must be another way.
But would he though? Was he not interested in pursuing whether they do have thought as Data wanted them to look into, because he was entertaining Data, because this was important to Data?
No, I don't. I just think it's a difference between them, and it's good writing. It just shows Riker is just like, he's not, philosophical like Picard is. He's just like, do the job, get on with it, and I like it. It's good.
No, you're right.
It's good
because Picard's command is make it so.
Yeah.
Riker's is do it.
Yeah, exactly. the other thing is when like Wolf says, I think it's Wolf says, can we not pilot a shuttle? And Dr. Farallon says, oh no, it's too far away. I never understand this with Star Trek, because they've got like ships that can go to warp. So could they not just get the Enterprise, warp it in, like to possibly not like 5 metres away, but certainly very close, then get the shuttle to go over, come back and warp out? Yeah. I mean, distance should not be a problem.
It shouldn't be, not in
Star Trek, because they've got like, you know, can go 1,000,000 times the speed of light, or however warp 9.999 is. It's just an excuse, isn't it?
Yeah. Question for me that I've just thought about: when the nanobot, and that's not a nanobot, but that's what I'm going to call it, goes into the tunnel first of all, and there's the explosion. How come there's 1,000,000 like rocks came out of it? They're on a spaceship that's full of metal.
Yeah,
there are no brick walls.
Whenever a console explodes, and you know that's a whole different league of questions. Why, when the ship gets shot, do they seem to have like, I don't know, dynamite or TNT in the consoles? They always explode. And rocks come out.
Where's the rocks coming from?
There's always rocks, isn't there? I suppose it's meant to be a mining operation. But
you're in space in a spaceship. There are no rocks.
Is it?
There's no brick walls.
No. Yeah, so as we said at the beginning, bit boring.
It was
10 minutes of goodness. Yeah.
It was alright.
Bye.
Bye.
Yep, same wavelength.
Yes. Where did the rocks come from?
And you're right, very feeble excuse for not using shuttles, particularly when they clearly show from the model shots the Enterprise is right up by the particle fountain station thing, and therefore that shouldn't be a difficulty getting a shuttle out in no time flat. That's ridiculous.
Can't get there in time. Rubbish.
Pathetic.
The only thing I could think of is that they've got ships like the Enterprise go really, really fast, and then shuttles are like a pedalo.
Yeah, even so. Yeah, I love the fact that there's the contrast between Picard's command style and Riker's. More reflective, more reactive, and do it.
Yes.
As his phrase. He's never really got a phrase, did he? No. He just developed the weird form of sitting down.
Yes.
He wasn't allowed a catchphrase, poor old Riker. Yes, no, can't disagree with any of that. Very true.
Yes.
Okay, we've also heard from Dimbo Sama.
Ooh.
Hello, Orgs. It's Dimbo Sama here. Well, this is getting a habit I don't really want to develop, but it seems like I missed another one. Maybe I shouldn't have drank scotch during Move Along Home. So, yeah, about those. Move Along Home was pretty dumb. It's not as bad as we were fearing. I think my problem with it mostly is that it feels a lot like a TOS episode, and it probably would have worked as one. I'm not a big fan of it overall. But Fistful of Datas was good. I enjoyed it a lot. It was daft, but it was a good kind of daft. I thought Alexander trying to get Worf invested by having the program be in the West was pretty cute. So anyway, on to the quality of life. I loved this episode. I love robots. I love the idea of emergent artificial intelligence, and I love the little exobots. They were so cute. I'm also a fan of Geordie's beard, and as a bearded man myself, I agree with Riker. I think the beard is a great symbol of rugged manliness. Dr. Farallon seemed to me to be she seemed to respect Data as a creation more than a person. That kind of irks me. If I were to get into all the reasons why people's attitudes to Data are important to me, we'd probably be here all day. But her position on the exobots is entirely understandable, given that emergent intelligence is, strictly speaking, a malfunction. It is outside the parameters of what they're supposed to do. So her vehement refusal to acknowledge that as a thing that's going on makes perfect sense. I'd be pissed off too in her shoes. The idea of Data finding, maybe as he puts it, like a progenitor, doesn't really make a lot of sense to me in regards to exobots. As I see it, we've had robots in the past in Trek. All of them were designed, or say like V'ger in the Motionless Picture, transformed or altered in some way. But the exobots are an example of pure life coming from a mechanical entity. Even Data was designed to be intelligent and self-aware. This is less like, these could be my ancestors, and more, I am the only being in the universe who can truly appreciate what a moment this is, you know. Like he could be there for them, be the kind of person to preserve and encourage them that organic species have never had the privilege of having. I think that's a much bigger deal. In fact, he even admits so much to Picard at the end of the episode. I think that's what the real motivation is. I think the ideas were really good. It's a great great episode. I'm really glad I've finally gotten Fantastic TNG whilst I've been feeding back. Yeah, it was fantastic. That's all I've got to say. I'll be back in just a bit with my feedback for the Nagus.
Cool. Oh, I'm glad you're a big fan of that. That's nice. And obviously, there's sort of themes that it's covering. Obviously, speak to him in a way that they weren't quite to us. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
Interesting point about their intelligence emerging, and
Yes.
that being quite a unique thing. And
Yeah.
obviously, in Data's case, it was designed into him, but here's something happening naturally, and therefore actually even more special in a way.
Yes, yeah. And also I like the idea of Data being able to perform a role for them that nobody has done for humanity. And yes, I like beards as a symbol of rugged manliness. I completely agree.
Or, as I say, in my case, more sort of messy laziness, but there we go. But as for the bots being cute, as I say, they might be cuter if it wasn't for the big feet.
Yeah.
But hey, glad somebody liked it. Excellent.
Yes.
Okay, and we've heard from Brandy and Dave from the Inside Outcast.
Hello! Okay, quality of life. Now, I may have mentioned in my previous feedback I was not looking forward to the next 2 episodes, or these 2 episodes that we're doing. And because I remember not enjoying quality of life at all. This whole thing about, is it life? Is it alive? Because it's a machine. I don't care! We've done this already! Watching it again now, 21 years later, had a totally different experience.
It does seem like they're beating a dead horse, because that's what Data's all about. So
But
why
that's-
just keep doing the same theme over and over again?
Because Picard did that for Data, when, that scientist basically wanted to disassemble him and study his brain and all that
Right.
stuff. And they had that trial, blah, blah, blah. Data felt the need to do that for the exocomps because they had no champion. They had no choice. They had no one to stand up for them because no one had recognized they were alive.
Uh-huh.
Data risks the lives of Geordi and Picard to prove that these creatures are alive. It's very well paced, considering, because you're like, okay, technobabble, particle fountain. What the hell is that?
A particle fountain?
It's a new mining technique. Really? Are mining techniques that hard to do?
I was
this
just about
far
to
in
say,
the
it sounds like
future?
something you build in Minecraft.
Yeah,
a particle
exactly.
fountain.
Let's build a particle fountain and go to the particle underworld. I don't know. There's a lot of technobabble on that, and of course the head of the project is Dr. Farallon, who again has a boring forehead thing. Let's come up with something different. Oh, she looks all human. Let's just slap a forehead on her, though. Let's take a Klingon one and mess around with it. Give her a little bit of a Bajoran nose, just for fun. Yeah, no, boring. Stop doing that, guys. One of my favorite things, actually, about this episode is the way it starts. Starts with a poker game, and you're going, oh, fuck, another poker game. But then it goes into this thing about Geordi's beard. And then it develops into this thing about how beards are an affectation, and Riker, Geordi, and Worf all take offense at that. Crusher's like, what's the thing here? And, oh, it's not an affectation, and important people have had beards, blah, blah, blah. She's like, yeah, but since the invention of the razor, it's an affectation now, like women wearing makeup or nail polish.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you didn't, Crusher. And so she makes a bet. If I win this round, you guys all have to shave your beards.
Wow.
Then Riker says, well, what do we get if one of us wins? And she says, I'm open to suggestions. And so they end up telling her she has to become a brunette if she loses. And she's like, no, I tried that once when I was younger. It's terrible. Couldn't change it back fast enough. And he said, oh, now I'm intrigued. And she says, okay, fine. That's what we're going to do. And then the captain interrupts their game with a communication that they've arrived at the particle fountain, blah, blah, blah. They cannot leave that poker game fast enough, the pussies. Freaking pussies. Just admit it's an affectation and grow up, men. Then we get into the meat of the thing, this whole particle fountain. Hi, kitty. This whole particle fountain thing. Cutting edge experimental technology. That can't possibly go wrong. It never goes wrong in the Star Trek universe. Ever. Oh, yeah.
They have the worst think tanks in the world, because every time they come up with a new concept, it's disastrous.
Yeah.
I don't think they ever make anything that works. Even the Genesis project was a piece of shit, ultimately.
Yeah. Thanks, David. Not you.
No.
The David and... Yeah, that's Kirk's son. Anyway, I had forgotten that the exocomps looked like little two-legged mechanical piggies. So that endeared them to me.
Piggy Lanks have come to life.
Yeah, it's just, they're so cute. Like, oh, look at the little piggies. Yeah, actually, I was thinking that through most of the episode. I didn't remember I remembered the basic design, but then when I saw them again, I'm like, piggies! So that actually made them a little bit more alive to me. It was adorable. Except the whole flying effect, they did it with practical effects. The thing is, you can tell that they're on a wire because they're swaying back and forth. Yeah. I find it difficult to believe that a machine would sway back and forth when making important repairs with the tool that it replicated it. So, no, that thing is just going to be steady. Just steady, unless you designed it with really shitty anti-gravity pads or whatever they do. Dr. Farallon, she goes through mood swings like a bipolar bitch in this episode. I mean, she starts out, being really excited but defensive because she wants the Federation to take this technology and she wants it to be a success. And it's not about money, of course, but it's definitely about a bit of glory. She's very defensive about, her project, and when Geordi starts to question things, she's getting all jittery, like, back off. So, and she wants to actually present the exocoms as a new tool in addition to this particle fountain. And she shows, them what the exocoms can do, and everybody's impressed. It's funny to watch her the first time she meets Data. She is like a kid in a candy store, because she has studied his positronic net thoroughly and extensively and incorporated certain aspects of it in her design of the exocoms. Really, I wanted to punch her in the throat through half this episode. So a couple of fun things. Deanna's poodle hair has gotten under control. It's no longer the big fuzzy thing up front. It's back again, even though it's still curly. Thank God for that. I enjoyed the fact that Data was going to Dr. Crusher with these questions about what constitutes life, and the discussion that they have about how there's no definitive answer. You can say it's this or it's this, but those things can be the same description of fire, but fire is not a lie, although it seems like it has a life of its own.
Yeah, Aristotle had a list of things that constituted life, and I think you needed like 7 of the 10 to be considered life.
Yeah.
Like self-replicating.
There's still no definitive answer, because life, it is ever-changing. Those particular descriptions are not always going to be accurate in the future. I actually really enjoyed this, and I did not expect to.
Well, that was a surprise.
That is it for quality of life. Thumbs up that I did not expect to give. And then I'll be back in a minute to talk about the Nagus.
Okay, so yes, well spotted. Troy's hair has been restyled and will stay this way for the rest of the season. It's still a bit poodly, but it's a lot better than it was, definitely, yeah. The little piggies. So I go to a dildo place and you go to a hamster place. It's far more healthy, I can't help feeling.
Thing is, though, given that you said that they're effectively vibrators, and Brandy has said that they're piggies, does that mean that the female equivalent of a wank bank is a piggy bank?
Okay. Moving swiftly on. Yes, Farallon's mood swings. Yes, very true. She just seems to calm down and then she's off on one again. But I like the fact that you say usually the overly dedicated scientist is played by a man.
Yeah.
But here it's a woman, which I think is a nice touch. She reminded me a lot of Dr. Stubbs in Evolution. You know, the one that's into baseball, and he's got to get his project done, and he's even to the extent that...
at least Wesley isn't in this.
Yes, this hasn't got Wesley in it, at least. Thank you, Dave, for the Genesis project was a piece of shit, which I want printed on a T-shirt. I want that T-shirt. And now I also want that scene in Star Trek 3 Recut where Davey goes, it's Dave and David, isn't it? Yeah. And when David goes, I used Protomat, the Genesis project was a failure. I can't believe they'll kill us for that. He should have said the Genesis project is a piece of shit, Dad. I can't believe they'll kill us for it. And yes, boring foreheads and Data's a champion. You can go with all that.
Yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it? So the last two sets of feedback, a lot more positive on it. I guess if this is the sort of issue that really engages you, you're going to really enjoy it. I personally just found it too talky and not enough action to keep my interest, and I wasn't that invested in the Piggy Dildo Machines. On which note, shall we move on to the Nagus? Yes.
An empire forged by treachery and deceit.
My advice is to lock up the silverware.
I'm already on it. Is about to unveil its master plan.
Our word can be our bond until we decide to break it.
First, they will choose a new leader.
Quark!
Then they'll take over the galaxy.
When in doubt, be ruthless.
How touching. On the next episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
After we've recorded stuff for one episode, we get ourselves more beer before we record the next one.
Reinforcements.
Yes. And while I was getting our beers, I found myself humming. As a result of Brandy's feedback about the Doctor's mood swings, I found myself humming My Mood Swings by Elvis Costello.
So speak to me, just like you should. And then you can say those wicked things. And if you want to make it good, before my mood swing.
So that may well be the tune for the episode. We don't know yet, but quite possible. We may at some point need to go into section 31, just to because we haven't spoken about it for a while.
Yeah.
Section 31 is our spoiler zone, effectively. And if you don't know what section 31 is, don't Google it, because that in itself is a spoiler. Okay, but we'll let you know if we hit it, and we'll give you a time to fast forward to avoid it. Okay. What do you make of the trailer then?
Doesn't bear an awful lot of resemblance to the episode.
Again, it's all the most exciting bits, but this is very much a comedy episode, which isn't such an easy sell in a trailer.
I suppose not.
So therefore, it does seem a bit random and strange.
Yes.
Our episode opens with a shady hooded figure entering Deep Space Nine with a staff with a Ferengi head on the end, which apparently was supposed to be modelled after Armin Shimmerman, but if it is, they've not done a very good job of it, to be honest.
A Ferengi staff has a knob on the end.
It has indeed. Meanwhile, Cisco has announced to his son that they're going to Bajor for the Gratitude Festival. La 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 la. Happy shiny Gratitude Festival. Sorry, it just sounds like a really naff celebration, doesn't it? It will reappear in season 3.
Surely the Gratitude Festival is like Thanksgiving. Surely that's what they're
Yeah, presumably, but it's just a crap name. And season 6 Tears of the Prophets as well. We get the mention of...
is that where you come from? Oh, there's a thing that they keep saying all the time. Taylor Joy or something like that.
Oh, yes, there is, isn't there, a phrase? Yes,
and
true.
It just made me think of, Frabjous Joy, Kaloo Kaloi the whole time.
Right, we'll get on to that at some point.
Sorry.
The Bajoran Fire Caves also get mentioned here. Although,
isn't that a fucking awful Keiko episode?
Amongst other things, yes, and of course home of the Par-Wraiths. More of them later on. Jake doesn't want to be away for 3 days because he and Nog have planned. And as he painfully points out for Cisco, Nog is his friend after all. And it's another beautifully acted scene between Brooks and Lofton. Meanwhile, Quark is berating his brother Rom for returning a lost purse to its owner. And here we get Max Grodinchik playing Rom rather more like we used to Rom being.
This is the Rom we know.
This is less like your Next Generation Ferengi and more like Rom. Although he's still not quite there, as we'll see in this episode. But the voice is definitely much closer. And he gets called a tiny-eared fool as well. Yes. I love the fact that actually he does have smaller ears as well. I don't know whether that was always by design, but there you go. But somehow, Ferengi, the more cunning they are, the bigger ears they have. And of course, when we get to see the Nagus, huge ears.
Yes.
We get the first rule of acquisition quoted, and this is the first time we've heard about rules of acquisition.
Rob, that lady tells me she misplaced a fat currency pouch.
Yes, brother?
And that you found it.
Yes, brother.
And that you returned it to her intact.
I was dazzled by her beauty.
You worthless, tiny-eared fool. Don't you know the first rule of acquisition?
Yes, brother.
Then say it.
Once you have their money, you never give it back.
Exactly. You can ponder its meaning this evening while polishing every rail in the place. Now get out of my sight before I toss you at the nearest airlock.
It's excellent stuff. Rom takes it out on Nog, getting him to do his punishment for him, which is cleaning up the bar. We get Quark telling a joke to Morn. I put Norm here, that's quite telling, isn't it?
Yes.
Who audibly laughs. I think this may be the only time we hear a sound from Morn's lips.
Yep.
And we get another Ferengi, who turns out is called Krax, who introduces himself and his father, Grand Nagus Zek! Yay! Quark kisses Zek's staff, of course, Fanar. Zek wants the use of a holosuite and is going to try all 5 of Quark's favourite programmes, despite the owner's concern about the Nagus' advancing health.
Clean up in aisle 4.
And the teaser closes with Zek's trademark laugh. Setting the episode up for comedy! Hooray! Yay. For some people, for other people, it's Run to the Hills. Sound tune. Because basically it's about one of these a season, your Ferengi comedy episode, and they are Marmite. You either love them or you hate them. I absolutely adore them for the most part, but I do know plenty of people who absolutely hate them, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out when we get to the feedback.
I do love them, but there's a character, and this isn't spoilery because all I'm going to do is name him. But there's a character that appears in later seasons called Liquidator Brunt, and I think it becomes a lot funnier once he's in the mix.
Well, basically, every time we get one of these Ferengi comedy episodes, and I say there was about one a season for what I remember, you explore the Ferengi society a bit more, and the more you explore, the more interesting it gets, I find.
Yes.
And the more interesting characters get spewed out, to the point that actually it gets a bit silly after a while, because there are too many characters being squeezed into an episode. But anyway, we shall come on to that anon. It's an odd teaser, but it's a comedy teaser, so what do you expect? Meanwhile, after the teaser, O'Brien is teaching at the school, as Keiko still isn't back from Earth yet. What a shame. He asks for Nog's homework. Nog uses excuse, it was stolen by some Vulcans.
Yes, Vulcans stole your homework.
It's just a pathetic excuse. He also gets Jake to back up the obvious lie as well. Quark is worried the Nagus is there to buy out the bar. And we finally hear Wallace Shawn as the Nagus speak. It's weird, all the way through the teaser, it's his son, Crax, doing all the speaking for him, like they've got some sort of telepathic link. But that never plays out ever again either. And for the rest of the episode, Wallace Shawn speaks in his trademark voice.
Yes.
And you recognise the voice from anywhere? You won't recognise his face, but...
I'm not sure I do.
Ah!
What are we going to do, Buzz?
No.
He's the voice of... Is it Rex the dinosaur?
Is he?
Yes!
Okay.
You listen to Rex the dinosaur, you could tell that's actually Grand Nagus Zek.
Really?
Yes.
Grand Nagus Rex?
Grand Nagus Rex, yes.
I've been totally earwormed by...
You've got a friend in me. You've got a friend in me.
Actually, very appropriate to this episode. You think about the Jake and Nog story.
Yes! Oh. Anyway, we've also got his servant Mayhardu with the purple hair.
Yeah, I like that. He's like a wrinkly Mr. Hom.
He is exactly like Mr. Hom. It's exactly the same role again. It's really bizarre. And it's every Trek has, up until this point anyway, has one of these characters, silent, tall characters. And you've got, in the original series, we just recently watched the episode, the really tall guy who went on to play in the Addams Family Lurch. Can't remember the actor's name. You got him, and then you got Mr. Hom, who plays Lurch in the Addams Family films, doesn't he?
Yeah.
That's a weird connection. I'd never put two and two together
So
before.
who does Mayhardu play?
Well, he's Tiny Ron, who's in an awful lot of things.
He is.
Yes. I mean, that was a
Gosh, I didn't recognise him under that makeup. I
comedically
recognise the
named.
name.
Yeah, he'll come back in Voyager as Horogen. That's easy for me to say after a few years.
Oh, they're the ones that are a bit like in
the
Firefly.
Predators. The Horogen are basically the Predators.
Okay.
Yeah. I suppose they are a bit like...
slash Reavers.
Reavers, yes, but more Predator than Reaver, to
Okay.
be honest, yeah. O'Brien suggests Cisco finds a way of separating Jake and Nog, but the commander rather sweetly says that he trusts his son, which is nice. Also, he doesn't want Jake to have to choose between him and Nog because he fears he'd lose, which is rather less sweet, but there you go. O'Brien says he doubts that, but Cisco points out the Chief's daughter is only 3. How can Molly be 3 when she was born 2 years ago? Never mind, let's not worry about that. Zek is dining with Quark and enjoying his tube grubs. We'd forgotten that they ate live wiggly grubs, which is pretty gross. The Nagus compliments Quark on selling out his cousin Barbo. And we get rule of acquisition number 6. Never allow family to stand in the way of opportunity.
Barbo sounds like something you don't want to admit to having.
All right.
You know, like a wart or something. A barbo.
You know, like a bubo.
Yeah, what's that?
A bubo's like a pussy spot.
As in bubonic plague?
Yes.
Ah, yeah.
Anyway, this is a nice reminder that Quark is a dodgy character. He's sold out his cousin after all. Rom, on the other hand, is rebuked for allowing his son to attend a Federation school with, worse than that, a female teacher.
And the thing is, what gets me when this is said is, why does nobody, Quark included, turn round and say, but if he can learn more about the Federation, he can then exploit them, which is the reason that Sisko originally gave.
To Rom.
Yeah.
And Rom's dumb in this scene. He's being browbeaten in this scene as well, so he's not going to come out with the excuses at this point. He's just going to stay silent.
But then you just think that Nagus would have gone, what a good idea.
No, he's not seen the benefit, as none of the other Ferengi up to this point have seen the benefit either.
Another thing, I think this happened before, but before the Nagus appears, you can hear him laughing, can't you?
Yes, when he's up in the holosuite.
And it just worried me. If you can hear him laughing from the holosuite, what else can you hear?
Noises
from the holosuite?
Yeah. And just what are Quark's 5 favourite programmes? Yeah, it's a bit of a scary thought, isn't it?
How many involved acts?
I don't want to know. Nog gets sent to his room with orders not to study and never to return to school, which is kind of a switch what kids normally get told. And then Zek asks if he can use Quark's bar for it. Well, he doesn't ask really. He pretty much tells him he's going to use his bar for a conference on the future of business in the Gamma Quadrant, which is a lovely reason to get the Ferengi in here.
It is.
They're going to start business in the Gamma Quadrant. Dressed in a snazzy purple number.
I like it.
Yeah, Zek infuses the collected Ferengi bigwigs, if you can call them that, when they haven't got any hair, with the idea of dealing in the Gamma Quadrant, where the Ferengi have no dodgy reputation. But then says he's too old to lead this expansion. He claims not to be as greedy as he used to be, and names his successor to be Quark! And there's a great reaction from Shimmery.
Oh, it looks like he's been shot up the arse with a rocket.
It does. What? Then we have another sweet conversation between Jake and Sisko about Nog being barred from the school. And then we've got Quark flouncing around the promenade in his purple robes. Graal, one of the Ferengi business leaders, threatens the new Nagus, offering protection from his enemies. The same actor will return to play a Tellarite called Graal, exactly the same name, in Enterprise. How bizarre.
How bizarre. How bizarre. How bizarre.
He's obviously got a very niche acting range, although he does appear as 2 different Ferengis in Season 7 of Next Generation. Quark goes to see Zek for advice, but the ex-Nagus becomes an ex-Ferengi in a very bizarre death pose.
Bloody odd!
Krax is overseeing the selling off of Zek's desiccated remains in a practice that we will see again. Nice continuity here.
Do.
And very Ferengi to sell off the desiccated body parts of your deceased relatives. Although considering how the episode turns out when we find out that actually this is a ruse and Zek isn't actually dead, whose body parts are being sold off here?
But they're in sealed containers, so presumably he's just replicated. It looks like green powder paint.
That's the nice assumption then, that nobody died in the making of this episode.
Yeah.
The other assumption is that actually Zek has got somebody killed. But there you are. Quark asks Rom to be his bodyguard, but the latter thought instead that he would rather take over the bar.
Yeah.
This causes Quark to do a spit take.
Oh, it's so funny.
It's brilliant. And collapse in hysterics. Odo turns up and points out Quark is hardly grief-stricken. He's disappointed to find that no post-mortem will be possible thanks to Ferengi death practices. Having argued earlier, Jake and Nog have now made up, and then their usual spot, dangling their legs over the promenade railing, which is very sweet. Quark informs Odo he'll have to make appointments through Rom to see him, and he'll need to kiss his sceptre.
Kiss my staff, Fanar.
And we get the usual harumph in reply from Odo. Someone drops a coin, and in ducking down to pick it up, Quark dodges a Ferengi locator bomb. And apparently it turns out these things track by smell, pheromones. It's a nice Ferengi idea. They're all so smelly that they can, build bombs to track the particular Ferengi's smell. Sisko attempts to interrogate Quark, but Rom interrupts, insisting he calls his brother Grand Nagus, and Sisko shoots him a great look. Forgotten just how good Avery Brooks is at facial expressions.
Yeah.
He's just wonderfully expressive. Most of the obvious suspects were present at the funeral, except for Mayhardu. And Odo makes the point that Hyperion servants are renowned for their loyalty, so it was odd for Mayhardu not to be there. Jay gets a dressing down for being out after midnight, and rightly so.
Yeah.
Sisko demands to know what he and Nog were doing, but Jake says it's private. quite know why Jake doesn't own it, tell him at this point.
Well, I'm guessing it's because Nagus asked him not to tell anyone, and he feels loyalty to his friend.
It could be that. And in which case they should just have inserted the line, I promised I wouldn't tell, which would have covered it nicely. But as it is, it just seems like a slightly unrealistic addition of
I don't
potential.
know, because even if Nog hasn't said anything, if Nog is embarrassed by the fact he can't read, then Jake's not going to do that to his friend.
I don't know. I would have thought, if I was Jake, I'd be telling my dad and be expecting great praise from my dad, but there you go. Now, the next scene is a classic scene, and it is awesome. It's a perfect recreation. Well, not perfect, obviously, because they don't have this amount of makeup in The Godfather, but it is a recreation of a scene in The Godfather, which you've seen. If you've seen it, you will immediately go, yeah. Right down to the fact that you've got Don Corleone stroking a cat. Well, here we have Quark stroking the... What was it called? The Corvan Gilvo from Newground, that rubbishy thing that Alexander went in to rescue when the ship was in danger. Yes, it's exactly the same.
Dildo.
Yes. God, we're stuck on dildos for this episode, aren't we? Stuck on dildos. There's an episode name. The way to go. Yes, and we've even got to the point we've got what you call them in the background.
They're blinds, aren't
like blinds, yes, that they've put in.
Oh, it does look a lot like the scene.
And Armin Shimon is channeling Marlon Brando in this scene, very much so.
Yeah, it's awesome.
The entire story, as originally written by producer David Livingston, it featured a crime syndicate, including Klingons, Romulans, and less logically Vulcans.
They did steal the homework.
Yeah, apparently. It's kind of a cool idea, but not as cool as what we get, I think, is fair to say. Ira Behr rewrote this, consciously drawing on The Godfather and fleshing out the Ferengi somewhat and giving them a rather more dimension than they ever got in The Next Generation. And I could be wrong, but I think Ira Behr writes all the Ferengi ones from now on onwards.
Oh, did he? Isn't he the one who wrote the book that's the Rule of the Acquisition?
Yes, he collects them all together for that and did an introduction, yeah. After Quark leaves for the bar, Rom and Krax decide they will have to come up with a new plan to kill him, which suddenly we get Rom being a rather more mercenary than we remember him being for the rest of the season.
You're right, but you've missed a key point.
Oh, yes.
Not only is that scene a Godfather scene, you've got the other Ferengi he's wearing bollocks. Okay?
It's like the Ferengi version of a bow tie, but it's
just
spherical.
looks like bollocks.
And therefore it looks like he's got bollocks hanging under his chin.
Yeah. He's got sparkly bollocks. Glitter balls. And not only is he glitter balls, right, but his plan is to introduce Synthahol to the Gamma Quadrant.
Yeah.
Synthahol is evil!
Oh, I see. Ferengis will sell whatever they can, however evil.
He is evil. Glitter Bollocks is an evil, evil, evil man, and he should die now.
Right. Anyway.
Evil Glitter Bollock man.
Yes, let's move on.
Sorry.
Jake hasn't turned up for dinner, but Dax turns up instead and helps herself to the aubergine stew, which is actually a reference to the pilot, because she remembers how much she enjoyed it when she was Curzon.
Yeah.
That's quite nice. She also, as you pointed out, does her variation on the Riker manoeuvre.
Yeah, she
turns the chair round to sit on it completely pointlessly. Really odd. I don't know if she carries on doing that. We'll have to keep our eyes open for that. There's a wonderful line from Sisko about surviving.
Going through my own adolescence was difficult enough. Surviving my sons is going to take a miracle.
We learn that Dax has been a mother 3 times and a father twice. She advises Sisko to go find his son, which he does, only to find his son teaching Nog to read.
It's very sweet.
Oh, yeah. Rom is helping Quark to get ready for a trip to the wormhole that Krax has set up. He does at least give Quark a chance to relent about the bar, but Quark is definitely not giving up the bar. Meanwhile, Odo is trailing Mayardu, including going into his liquid state to go through locked doors, which is kind of a cool idea. Although presumably those have got to be airtight to operate as airlocks. So how the hell is Odo going through it? Anyway. Quark enters an airlock, but there's no ship on the other side. Cue the pleading with a hand gesture we've seen before, which is nice. Rom is about to space his brother.
Really quite extreme.
Yes. When Zek arrives, demanding his release. Apparently, Zek had entered a sleeping trance that Mayardu had taught him. Sort of shades of Doctor Who here, isn't there? It was all a test to see if Krax was ready to take Zek's place, but he's failed due to trying to grab power rather than accumulating it slowly without anybody noticing, which is a wonderful Ferengi thing. It's a really nice justification. Apparently, the bar should have been the real prize, with an opportunity to get information about the Gamma Quadrant from everyone visiting. So this is our first and only appearance of Zek's son Krax. He gets completely forgotten after this. It does rather suggest that Zek maybe had him rubbed out or something. Sort of embarrassment to the line. But he never gets mentioned again. Weird. Particularly considering we find out all sorts of things about Zek's family life. But anyway.
Yeah.
Zek retains the Nagus ship, and Quark praises his brother for trying to kill him. He gives him a meaningless promotion and buys him a drink, which is probably the most touching thing Quark ever does for him, to be honest. Cisco, meanwhile, gives his son a big hug and praises him. Tells him to be with his friend, which is a very nice ending.
I like that scene because Jake is 14 and his daddy gives him a big hug and a kiss on the forehead, and Cirroc Lofton squirms.
Awkward.
And it just makes it very real.
Yeah.
The way that it's acted between the two of them. That Avery Brooks is acting, I'm really proud of my son and I love my son. And Cirroc Lofton is acting, I'm 14 and my daddy's kissing my head.
But yeah. It's a comedy episode, but with a big, big heart, I think.
Yeah.
Although it does have Ron being rather more mercenary than he later becomes. Zek is great. I love the character. Schumann gives another great performance, and You've got that nice stuff with Cisco, Jake and Nog.
I do wonder, though, I mean, maybe it's retconning, I don't know, but I think there's an extent to which Rom has already been introduced as a weak character, and so I wonder how much he's been influenced by what's his face. Is it Krax? Is that the right name?
Oh yeah, how much Krax is behind it all. Yeah, but you do get a lot of sort of vehement stuff from Rom.
Yeah, but then you get that in later episodes where he's obviously full of rage and he's cross with his brother.
Yeah, but you never expect him to be murderous in future episodes.
No, but that's where I see Krax influence.
No, but Rom's very willing to press the button and eject him. He doesn't go to Krax how you do it.
No, that's true.
So I think this is like sort of a very extreme version of Rom, and he gets rather more toned down in future. But anyway,
maybe you could argue then it's his exposure to the Federation.
Maybe. Now, we have the Mark's feedback, and it says warning spoiler, so we may be entering section 31, and if that's the case, you'll be getting a spoiler warning now. You are now entering section 31 territory. To avoid any spoilers for future episodes of Deep Space Nine, fast forward 3 minutes now.
Our official designation is section 31. Never heard of it. We keep a low profile. Works out better that way for all concerned.
And what does Section 31 do?
And the Mark writes, a Ferengi story. Oh God, how I hate Ferengi stories.
Marmite.
The unfortunate annual Ferengi stories are just awful. However, this one, the first one, works quite well.
Ooh.
And we now get an awesomely shot homage to The Godfather, with Quark in the Marlon Brando role taking over from Wallace Shawn's Nagus. I kept waiting for the Nagus to say something like, never get involved in an acquisition war on Bajor. One amusing scene features a room full of cackling Ferengi sitting around a table. I don't believe we've seen so many Ferengi at once, and this time more is merrier. The Nagus is very lightweight, but does at least recognise that. It moves very quickly, and as mentioned, the subplot does intertwine nicely with the main one. And I must note the Ferengi must learn quickly. If Nog goes from illiteracy to potentially going to Starfleet Academy in 2 years, that could be nitpicking.
Okay, this is a section 31 then.
Jake and Nog's parents' concerns about the cross-cultural friendship and the heavy-on optimism ending to this subplot is a bit schmaltzy, but also quite respectable. Poor Nog, corrupted by Federation values. Also, the fire caverns Cisco wanted to visit? Aren't those where the Par rays are?
Yes.
Is that set up right from the start?
Yeah, apparently.
Or is it patched in later? I'm not sure about that.
Well, there's no suggestion of Parraves at this stage, so
no.
It's just fire caves sound like a cool place, and I suspect they just use the name again.
Yeah.
For later, more darker episodes. But yes, I mean, the whole arc of Nog's character is just amazing. The whole arc of Rom's character is just amazing.
Yeah. But you get Rom staying in Section 31. Rom in this doesn't really match with later Rom.
No.
Nog, he is set on the path here.
Yeah.
He is being taught by someone from the Federation
Yeah.
to read. He has already made the decision then and there that he's going to go against his parents, and he's going to... So actually he is set on... In this episode, this early on, he is set on that path.
So there we go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We also had some feedback from Cheeky Monkey Gin.
Oh, hello, Cheeky Monkey Gin.
Echoing the comments of a fellow feedbacker a few weeks ago, I love the insertion of a Sparks track in a recent cast. Right, okay. I've tried desperately to think of a way to maybe persuade you to shoehorn an appropriate track into this edition. All I can think of is the number one song in Ferengi Heaven as a nod to the passing of the Nagus. Nice tune. I do recommend checking out the video with Ron Mail looking askance into the camera throughout. That's kind of what I think of when I think of Sparks. But anyway, Cheeky Monkey Gin continues. I'm well into my first rewatch of Deep Space Nine, having watched the series that went out in the 90s. I'm amazed at how my opinions have changed over the years. For example, I hated the Nagus character back then. Why? 20 years on, I think he's an awesome character, and I look forward to his episodes. Is that a spoiler alert? No, compared to the Mark, not at all. He even has his own Mr. Hom, yes!
He does.
One of my favourite reoccurring characters. And then he finishes off with LLAB, Live Long and bOrgCast. Lab. Take care, Cheeky Monkey Gin. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. No. And spoilers are fine as long as you flag them.
Yeah, that's great. So the Mark did the right thing there.
Yep.
Excellent stuff. We shall move on to the MP3 feedback, and let's hear from Brandy and Dave.
Okay, the Nagus. I gotta be honest with you guys, I did not watch this again. I couldn't bear the thought of doing it. Because I cannot stand the Grand Nagus. He is just another typical, annoying Supreme Leader to whom everyone bows and scrapes, who comes in and basically stirs up trouble. Honestly, the Ferengi are always better in small doses. There's no such thing as too much of Quark. But Quark is the exception and not the rule. And so when you start throwing in all these other Ferengi, like, anytime they go to Ferenginar, I'm just like, oh god, unless Jeffrey Combs is there as Brunt, and then I'm like, yeah, bring it. The first time I saw the Nagus, I'm like, that is Wallace Shawn. I knew immediately, even under all the makeup. To be fair, he can have a bit of an annoying voice, but he usually isn't annoying as an actor. But as the Nagus, oh, he is so annoying. This whole nasal thing that he does all the time, I just want him to shut the fuck up. The whole assassination plot, it really wasn't surprising who was behind that. I mean, that was just obvious to me from the start. It's a boring episode. It's an attempt at being lighthearted, and it doesn't work for me. Especially the secondary stuff with Sisko being irritated about Jake's relationship with Nog, and the whole thing about Rom pulling Nog out of school because he's associating with humans too much and isn't learning to be a Ferengi. Yeah, that changes later on, doesn't it? I just felt like Sisko should be so much better than a typical parent in this situation, and he is just so typical. I would think that, in the future they would be a bit more enlightened, but apparently not. Apparently he's just still a plain old disapproving, you shouldn't be hanging around with that boy, he's trouble. Oh, come on. He's a kid. Yeah, he's a Ferengi, but That's just annoying. And then he starts getting suspicious of Jake being around when he says he's going to be, and he thinks he's secretly doing mischief with Nog. Turns out he's teaching Nog to read. And then Cisco feels kind of dumb for assuming the worst. And you should, Benjamin. You should.
I wonder if they were trying to do something ironic because Cisco being black.
I hadn't thought of that.
Maybe they're showing the advances of the future, but at the same time, the more things change, the more things stay the same.
You
and
know
so
what?
there's a prejudice there.
I had not thought of it that way. Interesting insight, David. Thank you. I really hadn't thought of that. That puts a different spin on that for me. I still don't like Cisco with hair.
Yeah, you'd think he'd know better, but if things had advanced so far, and racism isn't what it used to be...
Well, there's still racism, obviously. Because people
well,
have a very...
more like alien racism rather than human racism.
That's what I'm saying, is that everybody has a very firm opinion of what Ferengi are like.
Right.
But not all
So
Ferengi
it's
are created
just
equal.
expanded.
Unfortunately, this is not going to be the last time that we see the Nagus. Oh, dear God. He's going to show up way too much in the coming seasons. Now that I think about it, I could have sat through the episode again with the sound off and the subtitles on. But interesting thing about Jeffrey Combs, he's going to show up soon. I swear he's in more episodes than Mark Alamo as Gul Dukat, because he plays at least 3 different characters. There may be more. I'm only like partway through season 6. There's still another season and a half. If he shows up as another character, that's possible. But no matter how much makeup you put on that man, I'm going to recognize him the moment he opens his mouth, because he has a very distinctive voice, and I would know it anywhere. I recognize it even in cartoon voiceovers. Oh, yes, I do. You cannot fool me. I know Jeffrey Combs, and I love Jeffrey Combs. He is deep in my heart. That's really all I have to say about the Nagus. Boring, annoying, frustrating. Get on with it. Let's get back to something real.
Yeah, it feels like a filler episode.
I know what they were trying to intend. It just didn't work for me.
Like, it wasn't really pushing anything in the arc.
No. No. Never more than 2 Ferengi, guys. Any more than that, it starts to just get annoying. We'll talk about that in future episodes. But anyway. So that is it for my thoughts on the Nagus. Is there any final words that you have, David?
Nope, I have no more feedback.
Alrighty then. Here's to next episode, unless I'm suddenly in rehearsals for Shrek the Musical, in which case I'll let you know. I won't know till Monday, so...
Maybe you'll send him a haiku or something.
Haiku about the 2 episodes. That is an interesting challenge.
Yeah.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, I need to do that with Letterboxd.
Thanks for listening to our rambling feedback, guys. And this is why I usually write in, is so I don't ramble. But and trust me,
hopefully I'll edit some of it out.
Yeah. Well, trust me, you do not want to hear me rant. It's a good thing I didn't do audio feedback for Fistful of Datas, because there would have been a lot of shouting.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to hear that. Well, actually, some people do, but not on the bOrgCast.
Some people request it.
Unless it's Anne-Marie going into a drunken rant, then that's awesome. That is awesome. And I'm with you, Anne-Marie. I do not like the Worf and Deanna thing. It was never okay with me. Ever.
Worf gets around.
Yeah, slut.
Yeah, I guess.
All right, so we love you guys. Thanks so much for a great podcast, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Wolf gets around,
round,
he gets around,
Wolf gets around. No Beach Boys. Good luck with the Shrek auditions.
Yes, and a haiku would be cool. It would be unusual, but cool.
I've never got my head around what haikus are, but they are poetry death.
Little short poems.
Yeah, I know, but there's more to it than that, isn't there? There has to be
syllables.
A certain,
I think.
Yes, you silly balls.
Yeah,
it's all a bit Salah, if you ask me. Anyway, to quote Blackadder, Jeffrey Combs, yes, will play at least 3 different characters in Deep Space Nine.
Really?
Alone.
I think of 2.
Yeah. Well, there's a Ferengi character. There's the Wayun. We just say no more. There's also a character. The first character I think he plays actually is the one where he wants to get. He's an alien. I can't remember the name of the alien. He's a one-off alien, and he wants to get an image of Kira to use in the holodeck. It's all very dodgy. But yes, he does play 3 different characters in Space Nine, and of course he plays the. Which is the blue guys? Andorians, that's it, in Enterprise, yes. But yeah, I think you're right. I think he appears more often. Mark, speaking of Mark, where the hell is Gul Dukat? I mean, I remembered that there was only one episode with Garak in it in the first season, but what surprised me is that there appears to be, thus far, I mean, I could be wrong, but only one episode, the pilot, with Golda Cat in it, which is really weird. But anyway, interesting how Cisco, he's being slightly speciesist. But at the same time, I do like that line he says to O'Brien quite early on, which is like, I trust my son. Well, then it kind of proves himself that he doesn't quite. But, he's trying to anyway. And as a parent, I can kind of appreciate the fact that he's trying his best, but it's very hard. And I kind of admire the fact that he's as hands-off as he is, really. I love Wallace Shawn's nasal voice. I must admit,
it's awesome.
The fact that he only comes back once a year kind of makes it, except I think, more often than that, it would get annoying, but yeah. And I'm not sure the Nagus is a typical leader. If you compare him to leaders of other races, he's a leader on very different standing, isn't he? Let's face it. He's a leader on the basis of his sheer cunning. That's the only
everybody
reason.
Knows it, and nobody tries to make out that he's somehow more ethical or anything.
Stronger or more intelligent. He's just more cunning. He's got a better business sense than anybody else. He is the what's that tosser's name who's behind Amstrad?
Amstrad?
The Apprentice.
Alan Sugar?
Alan Sugar. He's the Alan Sugar. And the Alan
Sugar is the Nagus. That is totally in my head now. And now, not only that...
You're fired!
Yes, and now Dragon's Den has got the Nagus in it.
Yeah, well, that would make Dragon's Den actually worth watching,
It
wouldn't
would,
it? But
yes.
there we are.
Actually, if it had a Nagus in it, there would be actual fucking dragons.
Possibly. Anyway, the bottom line is, as I said, Marmite. You either love them or you hate them. I don't know if it will be completely our own, but there we go. So, who next?
Dimbo Sama?
Let's go with Dimbo Sama, yes.
Hey again, Orgs. Dimbo Sama here, feeding back on the Nagus. I really like this episode as well. Before I get to the meat, Jake and Og plot was pretty enjoyable. I do want to ask, though, why is Keiko even in this show? She makes a big fuss about how the station needs a school and then fucks off to Earth for like a month, leaving poor Miles to run engineering on the station and run classes for all the kids. I'm starting to doubt her commitment to Sparkle Motion. But the idea of Jake, the whole thing where it intersects and then Rom forbids him from going to school and then Jake sneaks off to teach Nog to read is a pretty sweet resolution of the plot. I really enjoyed that, and it just, Sarah Coughlin is a pretty good actor, and he already elevates Jake from just the annoying kid to being a pretty likable character in his own right, and this just helps you like him even more. I really enjoyed it. As for the main plot, we get our first view of Zek. I have always liked Sean Wallace as the Nagus. He's always been one of the better Ferengi, in my opinion. He's a good comedian, and that really sells the comedy Ferengi. The whole sting is still a surprise every time I watch this episode, but I imagine it's because I'm not as familiar with it as I am with others. It's very clever, though. I get a good kick out of Quark being in over his head, both being drunk with power and, the whole people trying to kill him thing. Although Rom being so complicit doesn't really sit well with me. It seems very out of character, but I'll chalk that up to Season 1 growing pains. So, I don't know what falls into spoiler territory, if this sits in Section 31 or not. Hopefully you guys can clear that up for me. But the Nagus' ambitions for the Gamma Quadrant are really the main driving factor in, that big thing that happens through most of the show. It's really interesting. Usually it's some big conflict that does this, or it's some Cold War-esque prelude in a show, but the fact that it's such a small thing that starts this thing off is really interesting and very different, and I applaud it a lot. I believe I get that this is from them not exactly knowing where to take the show to begin with, but taking such a small aspect of it and making that the catalyst is really great, and it makes it seem a lot more organic in the long run. So yes, it turns out that the Ferengi were the catalyst in the beginning of everything, and that will never not be funny. So as always, thank you very much for the podcast. I'm looking forward to the next one. I'm not sure what episode. it'll be, considering that the next TNG episode is Chain of Command. That's a two-parter. But nevertheless, I'll be back to talk about the next episodes, and until then, looking forward to it, and I'll chat to you next time. Okay, bye.
Thank you, sir. Yay! Somebody else who's a fan of the Ferengi episodes. Yeah, I completely agree with Wallace Shawn. He's great, and not just a good comedian as well. There is a sense of threat, a very Ferengi threat. He's a threat to your business, not to your life, but to your business. But there is a sense of threat about the Nagus that Wallace Shawn brings to it, which is a nice element. And yes, the whole... I think we can leave this in, because you were wonderfully vague about it. Thank you, sir. But the whole thing being sparked off by Ferengi business interests, effectively, is an interesting element to it all. And you're right, they may be doing this on the fly, but if so, really inspired.
Yes.
And why is Keiko even in this show? You
Yeah,
may
good
well
point.
ask. You may well ask. Okay. I think it's Drew and Tracy next, isn't it?
Hello, Pete and Emery. This is feedback for Deep Space Nine episode The Nagus.
This has restored my faith in Deep Space Nine over the shite that was that last episode. I can't remember what it was called.
Home.
Yeah, exactly. Which was just horrendous. And I did say to you, I can't watch another episode of Deep Space Nine, it's going to kill me.
Yeah.
You forced me to watch this one tonight, and it was really good.
Yes.
It has brought me back on board, and I'm back in the game.
I like to end with the what we think of the episode, but yeah, okay, let's start with it. Yeah, it's great. It's a great episode. Lots of Ferengi stuff.
Yeah, lots of laughs in this one. It was really kind of.
It's a great episode.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, I liked everything about it. I don't think there was one bit where I actually rolled my eyes in this episode.
So that'll do. Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Not really.
No. But on the whole, this really was a good episode. I really did enjoy it. It made me laugh. It had kind of tender moments in it about Jake and Nog, which I think was really cute, because
that was
I think
great.
Teenage boys.
Teaching,
yeah, but teenage boys would bond. I mean, they are the only teenage boys that you see on the station, and it is right that they bond.
Yes.
And it's just nice that kind of Cisco turns out to be really proud because his son is being, the greater child and
it's a great moment.
Yeah, being a teacher. It was really good, really nice.
So O'Brien, he's taken over from Keiko because she's the teacher and she's away, so he's got to be the teacher. What's that about? I'm just thinking, it's a good job she wasn't like a gynecologist or something. Would he be taking over then?
Well, he might have enjoyed that.
Yes, but
See, only a Ferengi could get it backwards and get the amp that he's not allowed to go to school and he ain't got homework.
Yes, and I like that Vulcan stole my homework. That's like the
the dog ate my homework.
24th century, dog ate my homework. I'm going to use that one for Michael's.
But that's just racist.
What? Yeah, I guess so.
It is.
Is this the first episode where Bashir hasn't been smarmy and arrogant?
Yeah, I think so.
But then he's only been in it for 5 seconds, so I guess he didn't give him much opportunity.
Even he would be hard pushed to be smarmy in that length of time. What the hell was Quark stroking as he sat in the Nagus office, in quotation marks there, pretending to be the Godfather?
I don't know.
That was just nasty.
Awful.
It was like something out of the Dark Crystal. It was like a big fat stick insect with like some weirdo tentacles.
Bad hand puppet.
Oh, it was just wrong. Blech, don't do it. We knew the Grand Nagus wasn't dead. It was like blatantly obvious. But we do like that actor who plays the Grand Nagus. He is really good. I recognised him instantly.
You did.
But he is a brilliant actor and he plays it superbly. Love it.
He's great.
Just have one more thing to say, to be honest. You can't let the episode go without saying poor Morn.
I know.
Poor Morn. They made like a big thing of him being like a mate of Quark.
Is this the first episode we've seen him? I think
No, we've seen him before.
Is it okay?
Well, I don't know, because I get confused, whether we've seen people before or whether I've seen them, 2 years in the future or whatever. But poor Morn, he's like Quark's best friend 1 minute, and then the next minute it's like, get out! Poor Fluff. He needs a beer. Come on now.
So we've already said we really enjoyed that episode.
I liked that one. That was a good one.
It's great.
More of that.
More of that.
Thank you, please.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, glad you liked it.
So you get at least one of these a year, so there's something to look forward to. Morn is pretty much in every episode, even if he's just seen in the background. This is the I think possibly the most screen time he's had thus far.
Yeah,
and you're right, he's kind of sad when Quap turns him back.
It's like he only wants a beer.
Yes, but the bar's closed. I mean, how desperate is that? The only bar in the entire station is closed. Oh dear. Oh, the crap puppet is the Corvin Gilvo from the next,
dildo.
The Next Generation episode, Newground. It was crap in that, it's crap in this, but they're just reusing a puppet. Just for a Godfather reference, basically. I love the good job KK wasn't a gynecologist.
That's awesome, mate. It's myself laughing.
It is odd, but again, it's this whole thing about Star Trek teachers is just a thing you do as a hobby. You don't have actual teachers. It's just something somebody does when they haven't got anything better to do. It's bizarre. Absolutely bizarre.
It's like the idea that if you were ill, I'd be taking all the services.
Exactly, yes. You'd be preaching the sermons if I wasn't available that Sunday. Yeah, it would be absolute madness.
People would leave the church.
Oh, well, yes. You might get more people joining, actually. But anyway, that's another matter.
No, they just all leave.
Hooray, they liked it. That was a big relief.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we've reached that point in the evening when we turn to the man of wisdom.
Porry!
It was Porry.
Hello again, Porry here to talk about the Nagus. Now, I actually really enjoyed this episode. I know it was a silly Ferengi episode, but I think what stood out for me in this is, for starters, I think we learn more about the Ferengi in this episode than we have in 6 years of Next Generation. I mean, they're really fleshed out as a race. I think, is this the first mention of the rules of acquisition? Obviously we learn that the leader's called the Grand Nagus, and we just learn these hints and bits about their culture, all these little bits of colour that have been thrown in, which is really quite neat. We do, obviously the main plot is Quark gets made the Grand Nagus, but it's really a test of the Nagus' son by the Nagus himself. And yeah, as I say, I just found it quite, yes, it was comedy, it was Quark sometimes being smug, sometimes being terrified. I particularly liked all the bits with Rom, and indeed at the bit at the end where he says to Rom, you tried to throw me out of an airlock. I didn't think you had the guts. Well done, I'm promoting you. I thought that was brilliant. It really drums in that they're more than just a sort of big planet of hats is a sort of trope term, a sort of cipher of we're all greedy capitalists, and that they all, and for all that they are a planet of greedy capitalists, and that you get this idea of a culture and of just a very different set of values to humanity. The subplot is good as well. I liked the idea of we're seeing a bit more of Sisko worrying about his son and the company he keeps, and yes, the teenager not wanting to spend time with his dad and wanting to spend time with his friends again. I've got that to look forward to as well. And a bit at a bit near the end, yes, it's a bit cheesy, but I quite like the idea. Nog can't read, and so Jake decides, well, I'm going to go and teach him since he's going to school. Talking of the school, I did have one major gripe with this episode, and that was supply teacher Miles O'Brien. So the station's still kind of not up to spec. It's got a lot of problems. O'Brien's clearly rushed off his feet. Hell, he's late into school because he's fixing something. Sisko at least had one more thing for him to fix when he's standing in ops. But yet apparently he's the only person who can take over from Keiko as the teacher. Really? So, as well as all these duties, all these important bits of the station he has to fix, he's also got to do the school teacher. Is there no one else in this station? Is he like a one-man crew or something? Or is everyone else just, I don't know, really lazy or, very much working to rule or kind of jobs worth kind of people? Oh, no, I can't sub in as a school teacher. See, I'm not qualified. I've not done my course. It just seems rather bizarre that O'Brien comes in, and it is just so that he can then have that chat with Sisko later on. And I quite like that as well. For all that O'Brien is still calling him sir, you do get the impression that these are two dads talking. One obviously with a much older child, but talking about kids. And I like that. It's again more human, and it is this idea of convincing family relationships. And yes, O'Brien he's a blue-collar family man, and he's talking to Sisko, who's also a single parent. It really works out well, and that's a small scene, but bits and bobs like that really work in well, and I think really add colour. And this is, I think, one of the most Deep Space Nine episodes we've had of Deep Space Nine, where it's been about the expanding on cultures and sort of developing them. In fact, in many ways, the story's kind of I summed up the story in about 3 sentences, but the story's sort of a secondary thing to the fact that we're learning a lot more about the Ferengi. We're learning a lot more about, and we're getting sort of more colour in the lives of people like Sisko and O'Brien, and all that I think was really welcome. This is sort of what we will get with a stationary place, is more and more chance to look at the sort of people who are there more closely. So yes, overall, while the actual meat of the episode was very insubstantial, and I suppose the Ferengi comedy episodes are a bit take it or leave it, but overall I think for the expansion of the narrative, the storyline, and well, not expansion of the storyline, expansion of the universe and the more in-depth looking characters, I actually really liked it. So yeah, this one I thought has been really good. Also, the guy playing the Nagus, the bloke from Princess Bride, is fantastic. I really should have tried to throw in an inconceivable in this episode, but in this feedback, but there you go. So it just remains for me to say, do keep up the good work. It's a great podcast, I'm really enjoying it, and I will talk to you about the next 2 episodes. Until then, bye for now.
Bye!
You're talking to 2 people who haven't actually seen The Princess Bride yet. It's never been on when we've been ready to watch it, bizarrely.
No.
And it seems like it's one of those films that the rest of the universe has seen, but not us. 2 dads talking, I love that.
Yeah.
Yep. Teacher by marriage. Remember, he's a teacher by marriage, that's why.
Oh dear.
And yes, this is our first official mention of the rules of acquisition.
Yeah.
There have been a couple of phrases in the past which I think later get retconned into being rules of acquisition.
Yeah, I think that's right, actually.
But then they're not officially until this is the first time we hear the rules of acquisition mentioned by name. So there we go. Oh, I'm glad most people enjoyed it then.
Yeah.
Yes, but I am aware there are plenty of people out there who don't. I mean, Ferengis don't float everybody's boat, and if they're not your thing, then as I say, you've got at least 1 episode a season to dread, basically. But never mind. Something completely different next time. Next time, we won't be covering any episodes of Deep Space Nine.
Because we got a 2-parter.
We have a Next Generation 2-parter, and bear in mind also that Next Generation is longer, Season 6, than Season 1 of Deep Space Nine, so we need to catch up. So therefore we'll be doing Chain of Command Parts 1 and 2 in the next bOrgCast.
Yeah.
There are
4 lights.
Yes, that episode.
It's an awesome episode.
It is an awesome, awesome episode from what I remember. Been a long time since I've seen it.
Now,
really looking forward to rewatching this.
Is this me getting confused, or is David Warner in it?
David Warner is very much in it as a Cardassian. Yeah. We also have Troy in proper uniform, finally.
Didn't remember that bit.
Oh,
okay.
It's stuck in my mind for some reason.
Oh, I wonder why.
She looks far, far better, believe me. Anyway, we shall be recording this on Wednesday the 6th of August. So if you have any feedback, it's always most welcome. If you could just try and keep it to 5 minutes, really appreciate it, just because otherwise it makes for a very long evening. He said, looking at his watch, and it's nearly midnight.
Yeah, it's not far off midnight now.
But we do really enjoy the feedback, so thank you very much for your efforts and time put in for that.
You.
And it's just fascinating to see the wide spectrum of views on episodes, isn't it? It just goes to show that, one person's favourite episode is another person's, oh no, not that one. I don't think we've got any plugs this week.
Yeah, I guested on Tangential Deviation, possibly broke it. So when it comes out, do listen out.
It's all your fault.
Yes.
Okay, so we have that to look forward to. That's one of the Geek Planet Online podcasts. So, we'll catch you next time, folks. Take care. Cheer, bye.
Bye.
She wasn't smitten on the first by a curious fella. She said, I love the way you talk. And with a frown, she announced it. I love the way that you pronounce it. Marshmallow.
The bOrgCast is brought to you by the lovely people at geekplanetonline.com.
Music at the beginning of this podcast was written and performed by Adam Buxton and is used with his kind permission. All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
To contact us, you can use the forums at geekplanetonline.com.
Visit our Tumblr site at bOrgCast.tumblr.com, where you'll find images accompanying the episodes discussed in this cast.
Send email messages or MP3s to bOrgCast@geekplanetonline.com.
Or you can contact us via Twitter on rev_org or bOrgCastAmmo. #bOrgCast.